Well, I did not do a formal intro because I wanted them to tell you a little bit about themselves. So guys, for both of you, this is a question in no specific order. Tell us who you are. Tell us a little bit about your vocational journey, and how, and also, as you tell us about that, tell us about some things that you've seen. When you think about the word company culture, when you think about that phrase, what comes to mind for you? So a little bit about who you are, your vocational journey a little bit, and what does the phrase company culture mean for you?
Miller, I think it's age before beauty.
Please.
All right, well, good afternoon, or still good morning, one or the other. As Jonathan said, my name is Dustin Koehl. Some of you have already asked me if it's Koehl. I assure you it's Koehl, although my wife would probably say it's Koehl and she would change it tomorrow if she could. So first, I'll extend my gratitude and thanks for y'all being here too. Don't take it lightly that you have chose to have lunch with us and have a conversation, and hopefully we're able to facilitate some discussion and have some fun. I'll tell you up front, I use the acronym CCS. Anybody have ties to CCS in here? Maybe. So I cry, I curse, and I sweat. So I cry, so please don't be offended by my emotions. My wife probably thinks I have hormonal issues, but after we had kids, it happens. I get excited sometimes, so I do curse. Hopefully it's not from an evil place. You can blame John Stone of RUF for that. Yeah, please, Miller. And I sweat, so Jonathan, I'm sorry if you smell me too. So I'll kick off for myself personally. I think it's important to share. I'm the husband to Melissa in the back. Can you raise your hand? She loves attention, as you can tell. So we met about 14 years ago in the Lazy River at Dollywood Splash Country. True story, found love in the Lazy River. Actually went up there last week and enjoyed a lot of corn dogs and funnel cakes. Our kids loved it too. So we've got two amazing kiddos, and Charlotte is about to turn 6, started kindergarten this past week, and a lot of fun to see her, I would say, blossom. She just kind of ran out the door and didn't need mommy and daddy anymore. So it's pretty cool to see that. Davidson's 4. He loves all things Star Wars, which I don't know a damn thing about Star Wars. So I've got this encyclopedia and trying to brush up on the galaxies and all these characters and stuff. So it's a lot of fun in our house. But I would say on a serious note, I think our family, and specifically Melissa, they have played an incredibly important role, I would say, in just the integration of my faith redemption story into work as well. And so I will kind of swing over to the professional or vocation world. I'm a trucker. Some people get that confused with a really bad word. When Melissa introduced me to people on the mountain, she said, "He's a trucker." And they're like, "What? What did you just say?" I like that persona. I like that character. I'm a 16-year trucker. I've served in a lot of capacities, but most importantly, probably spent most of my career building what I would say teams and culture, process, and technology to really, I would say, serve customers and over-the-road truck drivers at a big way. Full transparency, if you read my bio, it's got all these pretty things and big numbers and all these truck drivers I'm responsible for. My last day at US Express was last Friday after a 16-year journey. We've got some US Express people here, so I think that's great to see. And they've actually seen me cry before, so this is no surprise to them in a professional or faith setting.
Driving the cargo truck now.
Yeah, come on, anybody that wants to go. But just grateful for my time at US Express. I got to learn and grow in some really big, meaningful ways, and now I get to take, hopefully, my gifts and skills, as LeBron James said, to Los Angeles. I get to stay here in Chattanooga and invest my time with some private equity groups and the autonomous world and still serve in a big way. So hopefully the theme I think you'll hear from both of us at some point is a lot about human dignity and how we can serve through that lens.
Thanks, Dustin. Miller Welborn. Jonathan, thank you for having this today. It's a great organization, great entity, a lot of great programs that y'all do, and it's a pleasure to come and share lunch with y'all and have y'all join. And gosh, I can certainly learn more than I can give, so glad to be here. Dustin and I have a lot in common, starting with probably both bartending through college, then both being truckers, and then as I represent the chronologically mature group in here, transitioned into banking. So I'm the guy in the room who hasn't figured out what he wants to be when he grows up. So I'm still trying to figure that out. I just love people, love being around organizations, love helping people build organizations. And my family represents a lot of who I am and what I represent. My wife is not here today, but is definitely the keeper of the culture in our family. I'm married for 35 years, 3 daughters, 2 of them married. Matter of fact, one son-in-law here. Thank you for repping the family, Grayson. And I, currently serve as chairman of Smart Bank. And I couldn't make a deposit for you if you begged me to. Have no clue about anything in operations of banking. I just love I'm more passionate about the people and the culture and the growth of an organization, and so that's really near and dear to my heart, and the growth and the M&A side of it and how to grow people. So I'm passionate about the culture and all the organizations and mainly younger people, and how do we get the next generation to be as passionate, and the older generation to see the passion of that younger generation. So look forward to sharing today, and thank you for being here.
Thanks both of you for being here. So as you're defining company culture, both of you have come up in companies, you've been in different roles. As you were in your younger years in your career, who was a leader that you saw that created a great culture around you, and what did that look like? How would you have defined that? How would you put your finger on someone that made a company, a culture that you were a part of really tick?
Well, for me, it was actually, I'll say an author. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Randy Ross. He wrote the book Remarkable, and he's a guy that was really this champion and change agent for the culture at Chick-fil-A. Anybody go to Chick-fil-A? Yeah. I think their chicken is mediocre, but I think their culture is phenomenal, so you just keep going back. I think Zaxby's chicken is far superior, but their service sucks.
You just lost any sponsorship from the family.
Sorry, I didn't mean that, but I did. But in all seriousness with Chick-fil-A, though, our family loves going in there because you feel valued. You don't feel like a commodity. As much volume as they bring through their lines each day, you do feel humanized and valued. I would say with Randy, he has walked alongside myself. And what's funny, and maybe some encouragement to this group, you think authors are these big personalities, and they're famous or they go on shows and stuff, but they're highly accessible. And I just emailed Randy one day because I'd heard what he had done at Chick-fil-A and throughout his career, and so we're probably in a relationship for the last 5 or 6 years, and he's walked alongside us to really shape, I would say, an industry and cultures in trucking that can be very dark and very broken. So I would say probably dates back 10 years ago in a personal relationship that he's really kind of poured into me and organizations.
Mine's probably a little more traditional, and it came from a business partner probably 30 years ago, and we had started our second or third business and had hired a bunch of people, and I was the guy who, I've always been an early riser, but thought I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning, be the one to open the door, be the one to make the coffee, felt like I had to close the door at night, lock it up, and we had hired some really great people, and after, 2 or 3 years of building this team, he came to me one day and he said, "Miller, if you would just get out of the way and let the people we hired do their job and be a cheerleader, we're going to be a whole lot better off." And I'm not kidding you, our business doubled instantly by just letting quality people we had hired to do their job. So, pretty simple.
That's good. So we're talking today about company culture, but also in light of your faith. And I'm just going to skip to this question because you mentioned Chick-fil-A. When we think about Christian company cultures, Chick-fil-A might pop to your mind, Hobby Lobby might jump into your mind, but most of you all in the audience, in most industries, it's not so explicit. The faith piece is not so explicit there. So what does it mean to be a part of creating company culture that is informed by the gospel in places that it isn't as explicitly shown, that there might require more nuance? And what are ways that you've seen that done well in your time in business?
Yeah, so there is, I would say it's a term or framework that I've become accustomed to, just this term called value creation. And I say it kind of funny, but that you're providing value or extracting value. Or I said that you are pouring in and breathing life into an organization, or you're taking it out. Very few times there's anything in between. So I think for me, you talk about value creation, it's actually value alignment. And all companies, whether they're faith-based or not, have some sort of culture or values. And I think as believers, I think you can really go to Matthew, like Sermon on the Mount, like Beatitudes. I mean, you want to talk about like values and script? Go to Matthew 5-7. And I think you can align with those, but you don't have to like just preach to people. You don't have to condemn people or judge people, but you got to find those commonalities and build out those frameworks or management systems of how you can really serve your people and customers.
I think it's, it's as simple as the golden rule. Just doing to others as you'd have them doing to you. I think if you have that philosophy at work and even at home, if you treat others like you want to be treated and put others first every time, you're going to end up getting a lot more. And a little bit of a spin on what Dustin said about, I believe strongly that there are two kinds of people in life. They're givers and they're takers. And most everybody wants to take more than give. And if you put yourself in there and just give and give and give, you will get a whole lot more.
Miller, I'll add a plug on that. Actually, this morning while I was working out, I was listening to Andy Stanley's podcast. He had Adam Grant on there. I don't know if anybody ever heard of Adam Grant, the author and professor at Wharton, but he's actually got the book Give and Take. And so it was an interesting kind of approach to kind of science and research, but then also as Andy would bring the gospel and thought there, but they found a middle ground, I think. And that's, I think, important to what Miller's saying, that you can find that in the corporate workplace very easily at times.
When you're thinking about building out a team and what you want to see happen, who is really setting the culture of an organization? What role is leadership playing? What role are the people working underneath you playing? You kind of mentioned this a little bit there, but how do those play together? And as we think about not just the individuals moving in a gospel way, but moving something that is for the common good, who's leading that charge, and what's the most important piece there?
I mean, I'll jump in there on this one first. I think everybody's got to lead it, without a doubt. I think it's critically important for the leadership to have it, to embrace it, and to lead the culture. But I also think if the team members don't buy in or they don't agree with the culture, it will be toxic at best and just not work. And I don't care how good the business model is if the culture is not good. So I think it can be started grassroots. I mean, I'm sure every phase of companies out here in this audience and entities, whether you've got good culture, bad culture. Some of you think you have good and you really have bad. And some of you have bad and think you're bad, and it's probably a lot better than you think it is. But I would say don't give up if you're just a team member. You can make a difference. Try every day. Win it, just like preaching the gospel. Win over one soul a day. You can win over one team member a day with culture. Don't give up. If you're passionate about it, stay the course. And if you're a leader and you see that it's coming from the grassroots, you've got an issue. You really need to sit down and have a face-to-face with who you are and who your company is. But I think it's got to be, if it isn't bought in at the top, it's everybody's job, and hopefully everybody's passion and everybody buys in. But I would hope it's bottom and top.
I feel like I should be taking notes. There's a lot of wisdom coming out of Miller's mouth. And for me, I'm not as PC, and for years, I've called it hot dog making. Anybody like to eat hot dogs? We love hot dogs in our family, but I can assure you, you don't want to know how hot dogs are made. I've been to hot dog manufacturing plants, and even up the road in Loudon, you've got a casing plant called Discase, and it's pretty disgusting sometimes. So, and not that's what culture is, but it is messy. With hot dog making, it does take everybody to Miller's point, but I think that goes back to kind of I would say our gifts and skills. that if you've got frontline employees that you got to stay connected to, you got to understand what they value, what they need. You've got to meet your employees' basic needs before you invite them into that, what I would say, relationship with work. And if you've got gifts and skills and you're fortunate enough to be a chairman or a VP, director, whatever type of stewardship of management processes, you should have some gifts and skills to provide a framework to have that two-way communication that allows you to build something dynamic and really flourish.
And I would, if you asked me to define culture, you said, we're here talking about faith and culture. I'm not sure I could define culture. I don't know, what that means, how to define it, how to build it, but I know it when I see it. I know it when I'm engaged in it. I know it when I'm involved in it. And I think it's something that you live versus something you can define. To me, it is. Yeah.
Dustin, I know recently you were just talking about staying attuned with what the people on the ground that you are supporting in a higher level role. Can you talk about, or would you be willing to talk about what you got to do earlier this year to really think about that? Is that okay to talk about?
I think so. If you're trying to make me cry, it might work. So in trucking, truck drivers, over-the-road truck drivers, most of you may know that go out on the road, they're out 2 and 3 weeks at a time. And it's a really tough job.
The hardest job in the United States, without a doubt.
Yeah. I had the opportunity, and actually probably a quick plug for Jonathan Faith and Works, through the Main and Market Fellows program, I had an opportunity to participate in this cultural renewal project that went from really a 9-month process to a 2-month process, or 2-year process, I should say. So it was a design and innovation framework that really allowed me to kind of go to some real life observations, which really shoved me into a truck for 3 nights, 4 days, or about 82 hours. Anybody ever spent any time in a truck before, slept in a truck? Miller. See, we got a lot in common, jello shots and trucking. So I went on this ride along at the time, responsibility for almost 3,000 truck drivers and about 400 staff. And a lot of opportunity, we'll say, in systems and technology, and so I kind of went in there with my Moleskine and thinking what I was going to solve for. But you got to go in there just kind of open-minded. You don't want to judge, you just want to observe. And we don't have enough time for me to share all of it, but what I came away with was most trucking companies, in general, this is not a shot at the previous employer or anything, this is most trucking companies. And again, an industry of 4 million truck drivers over the road that are out 2 and 3 weeks. Many truck drivers are materially poor and going into a very challenging job where that truck is their home. And many large trucking companies sometimes have 200 and 300 plus drivers coming through like cattle. Our industry and our country, what makes me feel emotional, treated like cattle. Treated like numbers, no human dignity. And you can see that's what I'm extremely passionate about. All that to be said, notice that the young man I was with, he had no money. He had no additional clothes. He did not have access to showers. Anybody want to take a guess how much it costs for a shower? Non-truckers, please. What it costs for a shower over the road? Anybody know? Pretty close. It's $14. I spent $56 on showers. I mean, so these are men and women that have a 70-hour clock. Most of you, if you're fortunate, work 35 to 50 hours a week. These are people that are giving 70 hours a week that really turn into 80 to 100, and they have no home. And so what I saw is we were not meeting their basic needs before going into a workforce relationship. So what came out of this project, that Center for Faith and Works played a really, really big role. We were able to provide showers for our drivers. They didn't have to live up to a status. Everybody's probably got a Marriott or Hilton account. You got to fuel up so many times before you get a free shower. That's not treating drivers like humans. So now we're able to do that. And that's what I learned from Adam, because I was willing to pay for his meals and pay for his showers, but in that moment, he didn't feel good enough. And he's not unique to that. So again, a very emotional way of sharing that opportunity.
Yeah. I would say that country music song, 99 Cent Heart Attack, was written about, it really was, for the truck driver, that's how they have to eat, and that's part of their life every day.
And that's a great point. I mean, you can get me mad cursing. Food deserts. Y'all hear about that in the inner city, but truck stops are food deserts. It costs $28 for this young man and I to eat Arby's. $30 for us to eat Subway, 20 and 30% markup in these truck stops. We're in Shepherdsville, Kentucky. It cost me $47 to go a mile to get this young man a hot meal. $47. I mean, just ridiculously hard, but what an opportunity to pour in.
And I think if you take that to the banking side of the world, your frontline staff, your tellers, or the people that interact with the public most of the time if you're in the consumer business. If you're a business banker, you're dealing with more business owners. But those frontline staff are a lot like the driving staff. They're the lowest paid, unfortunately, but have the most customer interaction. They are the ones that exude or can show the community if you have culture or not. They are the ones that are really the face of the bank. Who do you call most of the time if you have a problem with your checking out? You call the young lady or the young man that was your teller, that's your FSR. And so treating those people, the frontline people in your office, whatever industry that is I think way more important how you treat people down the line than how you treat people up the line. What is it that say about the ladder? It's a lot easier to climb it than it is, the fall is a lot harder. But you know, so it's treating everybody.
We've talked a lot about the relational side to caring for employees and how that shapes things. What about policy? When you are in a position where you're creating policies for an organization and the things that go that maybe don't feel as relational or hands-on or touchy-feely, how can those be part of what it looks like for the ethos of an organization?
Yeah, so don't be mistaken by my tears. I like to win and like relentless at that. And I go back to Matthew when you talk about being pure as a dove, but just wise as a serpent. And I think you can care deeply for people, but it doesn't mean you can't be competitive and want to win. So it's just policy, governance, cost controls, and I think that's where some companies get themselves in trouble at times, that you put really profits before people. And I think that people think if you drive the KPIs and the numbers that you're going to take care of the people, and really it's so opposite. And I've seen that time and time again, whether it's in churches or nonprofits or large corporations. So I think a common theme is still investing in people as you are trying to really influence policy and even those positive outcomes for profitability.
And I would agree with that. I'm way too competitive, and my family would tell you that, whether it's playing golf or family pickleball or you know, who can eat the fastest and the most. I'm unfortunately incredibly competitive. And I think that's the devil beating on your back. I don't think any of us as business people should ever apologize for making a profit. I think we work hard to make a profit, but it's how you make that profit and what you do with that profit that I think is important, and how you treat people and the systems and processes you put in place to be able to make that profit. You know, I think you probably would be hard pressed to find anybody at the bank that isn't passionate about our core values, and I think that core values come from just biblical principles. We're not a Christian bank, but I would say we're a bank built on Christian principles. And you know, we all wear this culture bracelet, and it's our core values, and it's, you know, create positivity and you know, accountability and embrace change, and it's just things that natural biblical principles that you live life every day on. And I'm just a firm believer in if you live that every day and are passionate about it, the rewards will be there.
The last 2 years with COVID, work's looked a lot different for a lot of people. For some people, like maybe a truck driver, it's stayed the same, you're still getting in the truck, but for a lot of folks, and in the corporate offices in particular where you work, many of the people that maybe you were supervising were no longer coming to an actual office space. And we were in this weird place of remote work. What did you learn about leadership and developing cultures in this new world of remote work that even as we come out of COVID is still going to be a part of moving forward in our working world?
Yeah, you're taking me back. So during COVID, I got to lead from my mother-in-law's bedroom as a sewing table as a desk with our sales organization for many, many months. And yeah, well, I was in that room like 16 hours a day, if not more, with sleeping. I'm glad I'm not there anymore. But, and I love my mother-in-law dearly, but I think it did, as we keep talking about humanizing people, it did humanize people because all of a sudden you saw kids jumping on Zoom calls and you saw all kinds of crazy stuff in people's homes that for the good that you just didn't necessarily see in an office environment. And so I think it helped me to Miller's points earlier. I've been that guy that's worked 60, 70 hours a week most of my career, and now you had no choice but to be flexible and even show grace to others that really had personal commitments that mattered much, much more than what was the business priorities. And now I think we're even in a bigger challenge, is I think that you're seeing these requirements or expectations to come back into the office. And how you handle that delicately with a level of empathy and understanding, but sometimes you have to do that firmly too, of stating the expectations and the why, but I think you can still care for people in a big way too.
Yeah, holy cow, if you didn't change during COVID, I would love to talk to you because I don't know how. I'd love to find an industry, an entity that didn't change some, but I'm the old-fashioned guy, as I said earlier, the chronologically mature guy in the room. I've always said I don't have to go to work, I get to go to the office. I've always been the guy who loves getting up and going to the office. And I think banking and trucking are somewhat familiar in this. Most of us had to be in the office. Now, banking went on. Now, a few times where we remote teller only. But there are a lot of industries that could do a lot of remote work. There are a lot of divisions and departments that could. Our credit department was able to, and still is able to, do a lot of their work remotely. And we learned from that. It's a great retention tool, and it's a great family tool. If somebody can do just as good a job at home or in the office in a hybrid situation as they can being in there every day, why in the world would we force them to come to the office? And just because we've got all these branches and bricks and mortar doesn't mean we can't redo who we are and rethink. But I think every entity probably had to make some changes. But I will say, and I'm not just saying this, we came out a whole lot stronger. And for two reasons. One, I think it made us address the business model and how we do what we do, but more importantly, it made us address the people side of it and what's important to the people that we had probably neglected of let's go. We're buying a bank a year, we're growing, and really sometimes the people get pushed down, but it made us kind of hit pause and really focus on the people side of it, and I think came out stronger from it.
I have about 5 minutes left before I want to open it up for questions with folks here. Y'all, your faith is really important to both of you, and you've worked in all kinds of levels of companies. There are people sitting in the audience today that are in C-suites, that are leading companies, that are making big decisions, that also are trying to follow Jesus and are trying to do that well, but are also trying to win and make a profit. What advice specifically from your heart in light of your faith would you give to other believers who are on that journey and wrestling with how to do that in a way that is faithful?
So my current role right now, I think I'm the assistant to the president and CEO of our household, which is Melissa. And I think some days this week, Jonathan, I'm his assistant as well. So, and I say that very fondly because it's been a great week doing that. But whether you're managing or leading a household or thousands of people or branches or trucking terminals, there's a couple of things that really come to mind through a biblical lens. And I wish it was from like some great Jim Collins Good to Great book, but it's not. But just a couple of terms come to mind. One is just being faithful in the little things. Like, as silly and easy as that sounds, like being faithful in the little things, I mean, that is pouring into an organization. That's pouring into the people. That's pouring into the process that really allows you to be successful at times. And Jonathan's heard me say one of the two other things I'll close with, but if you are a Miller Welborn, and I've seen Miller do this at a really high level, is really continuing to sweep the floor. being able to sweep the floor. If you want to connect with your frontline workers, your mid-level managers, even at the top, like, you've got to be willing to zoom in and zoom out. And I think sweeping the floor every day, it keeps you humble and intentional. The last thing I'll say with a smile on my face is Miller's fat. That's an acronym. See his face. He was not going to like that. But and something my wife had taught me years ago, and I just kind of dismissed it, but in leadership of really large teams, and just what I would say, in the corporate world we say mentorship. Everybody loves it. Get yourself a mentor. In the church we call it discipleship. But whether you're leading large teams or individuals, being fat, faithful, available, teachable. Miller, even in his role, he's still wanting to learn. He's available. He's teachable. See? But that's what I love about Miller in so many ways.
Wow.
He was going to be highly offended. I saw that.
Glad I didn't eat lunch today. I would say, what did I learn? I think it starts at home, and I really do believe this. I think if you're not happy at home and you don't have a good marriage and you don't have a good partnership, that goes to work with you every day. Here you go. I just don't think I could get any better at home. My home life and my wife are incredibly important. Karen's the kind of lady who, if I could just be like her, she wakes up every morning and her whole goal is to, what can I do to give to others and make things better every day, all day. The other thing would be, the other bit of advice would be, gosh, if you're in a toxic work environment, if you don't like it, you all are bright, talented, well-equipped individuals. And I would say if it's untenable, don't stay, move on. Find something that is enjoyable for you, because I think that will resonate at home. It'll resonate with your kids. It'll resonate with your spouses and your family. So I would say find something you enjoy and do it well, regardless of what that is. And I guess my quote would be not from a really strong business book, but mine's, I equate a little bit more with Dr. Seuss. So mine would, there's a quote from Dr. Seuss, and it's something like, be who you are and say what you feel, because the people that mind don't matter, and the people that matter don't mind. So.
I don't want to leave out some people who may be going, well, I'm not in the C-suite. I'm not running an organization. But I care about where I'm at. I want to be a part. What advice would you give someone that's trying to be faithful to the place they're called to be, the culture they're called to be a part of in this season? Either from your C-suite level, like from your administrative position, what you would want from someone, you would want to tell someone, or what you would want to tell yourself when you were that age and in that season of life?
So resource and response, that's what I'll give you. And Jonathan knows one of the resources. So Dave Evans, he's an author. He's co-founder of the Design Innovation Lab at Stanford. He wrote a book called Design Your Life. He writes much on influence and authority. What to do when you have no authority, but what can you do to influence? And oftentimes it goes back to the give and take. And I think in our Christian walk and faith, we are called to love and serve others. And oftentimes, even for myself, the more that I continue to think, oh, it's all about me, I can go down some rabbit holes and really not provide a whole lot of value to any organization or relationship that I'm in. But even if you're on the front lines, I think that still remains true, that you can still serve others and equip others, whether you manage them or not, whether they're your peers or another department, whether it's a 30-second interaction asking somebody how they're doing, that matters. And I think I can share this respectfully as I exited a 16-year career. The text messages that I got over the past couple of weeks, or week I should say, was not, "You're this great leader, thanks for driving revenue and growth and all the things that you did for us." It was, "Thank you for asking, thank you for supporting, thank you for serving" at times. And that doesn't mean that I did that perfectly, but it was a lot of appreciated texts, and it was just very simple acts.
Advice I would give C-suite people is get out of the C-suite and get down and manage more by walking around. I mean, I think you hear that quite often, is spend as little time as you can there. And for those trying to aspire to get there, don't try as hard. Just keep doing what you're doing and look around and serve others, and I promise you your work will get noticed, and you'll be right where you want to be, right where you should be, right where God wants you.
Can we thank them for their time? We have 13 minutes until 1, and the calendar was till 1, so I want to be really respectful of your time. But if there are a couple questions from you all that you want to hear more about, or things that are on your heart that you want to ask, we'll take a few questions.
Just thinking about company culture and the future with technological innovation and what that potentially means on those two industries in particular, banking and utility.
Can you summarize the question for someone?
You just said summarizing technology and the good and the bad and ugly of technology now and in the future, I think. Gosh, I would say, again, maybe it's just my age marking it, but I think technology can be one of the greatest gifts in the world and one of the most dangerous things in the world. Use it wisely, use it sparingly, and if you don't know how to use it, find somebody to help you. And keep your kids away from it as long as you can, and when they do get hold of it, put boundaries around it.
Yeah, it's a great question, especially from a trucking lens. And my friend Matt McClellan and I get to spend a lot of time in this technology space, specifically autonomous trucks. And I mentioned that Cultural Renewal project, but when this started, it was actually autonomous trucks impact to 4 million driver lives. And for those of you that aren't close to this space, there will be fully autonomous trucks, no driver in them within the next couple of years. In Arizona, it already exists. In Arizona, there's a company called Waymo that is owned by Google. They have 300 fully autonomous taxis that run every day in the Phoenix metro market. I rode in one for 30 minutes, no driver in it, felt safe, even forgot that nobody was there. It was remarkable. Had an app just like Uber. They're coming to Dallas next year, and then they're going to market in Atlanta in a couple years after that. But commercial trucks is coming too.
I'm going to interrupt you a minute, just for these people that don't realize that between Dustin and Matt being in the room, you probably read a little bit about autonomous trucks and trucks of the future and driverless trucks and technology and all that. I'm not exaggerating. These two are probably two of the top 10 in the United States on their knowledge of autonomous and technology in the trucking industry. And you pick their brain, and whether you like it or not, and it's not, you can say it's down the road 20 years, but 4 to 5 years, I mean, it's here now, but in 4 or 5 years, it will really be here.
I have a question that kind of flips the normal way I think we've had this conversation. I think we often talk about how do we take culture of what we learn inside a church and sort of port it out into the marketplace. But in this context, you're talking to people who spend an enormous part of our lives in the marketplace. If you turn it around, like, what travels back into the local church and maybe what doesn't? How do we manage that?
See, Dustin, I told you he was the smartest guy in the room and asked hard questions.
Man, you go for it first. You got more wisdom.
Wow, serving the church. I will say when you get my age, Dustin's of the age, and some of you are even younger than that, where you're really building your resume. How can I serve more? What boards can I get on? What organizations can I get involved in? And when you get my age, you start saying, okay, what can I unwind? What can I hand off so I can have a little bit more of me time? What can I quit doing? And Karen and I are really passionate about this. It's give up everything you can, but even lean in more to the church. And I think it's, whether it's, you don't have to be an officer in the church, an elder or a deacon, but I think serving the church, whether it's teaching Sunday school, I know we got several of them in here that do that, sitting on the floor with the children, teaching them in kindergarten, or serving at the school or whatever. I just think leaning into the church is more important than ever, more needed than ever, and I think certainly should be a responsibility of every one of us to lean into it rather than back away from it. I don't know if that's...
I think I've got a response now. I've got to think about this. I think it does go back about our gifts and skills too, like really understanding and walking along people to help them understand their gifts and skills. And I do have a personal note, and Miller, again, transparency, has discipled me the past year and a half or so, but even in the church, I was asked to be a deacon, and through process and counsel with Miller and our pastor, I said no. And I didn't think that I had the gifts and skills and in the right season to do that. And ultimately, I felt like the capacity I did have, that I was going to have to say no to something that Melissa and I really enjoyed, was facilitating a small group. And I think it's really important sometimes that both sides of that equation, whether it be church or the individual, not really having a clear understanding of those gifts and skills that can be poured back into the church, and connecting those two.
Point of clarification, I did not say he didn't have the gifts and skills to be a deacon. I said he didn't have the time to be.
We have time for one more question if there is one.
Dustin, you mentioned something about how the mindset of prioritizing KPIs revenue does not always lead to people getting taken care of. So, but my question is for people who are maybe lower on the ladder, where that kind of mindset is maybe expected of us, like, in order to be rewarded in the workplace, what can we be doing now to manage that tension? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Can you summarize the questions?
So let me repeat this. What I'm hearing is you're trying to figure out how to handle that tension between really culture and KPIs. Is that
sure? Yes.
fair? Okay. It is a slippery slope, my friend, that oftentimes I've seen, and again, consistently over the past 16 to 20 years, that you don't have much runway to prove that investing in people and culture matters. And so the risk tolerance is the term that I've used whenever we have created a new strategic business unit. I've done that a couple of times, or even our own startups, and we've seen it work and not work. And so I wish I had a silver bullet response for you, but I would say you have to be incredibly intentional. And I think very missional and intentional, and everybody has to understand, like, what is that North Star that you're running after? And even as a frontline employee, like, you have to understand and communicate. And this was something that Dave Evans gave me as I was struggling with some things of influence and authority, of just your Nehemiah moment. Like, if you're not clear on the KPIs and that mission, communicate what you need. Because so many times I've seen frontline workers, and really at all levels, Amazon calls it being a silent hero. We don't need silent heroes. And then the bomb blows up, and then everybody's saying, well, I didn't have this, I didn't have that. Don't be a silent hero.
And I'll say to that point as well, dashboards are becoming more and more involved in most businesses. That's how we manage it, KPIs and dashboards. I think that's where leadership is critically important in an organization. If they don't buy into the importance of giving the people the runway, understanding the goals and metrics, and being able to articulate down and have that passion for the team, not just driven on all numbers. That's
one other fun idea. My wife is going to make fun of me. Her face looks terrified. If you're a part of a project, and I think of the guys at US Express, name your project, name your mission. Like, we had Project Elephant. You bite it off at one chunk at a time, and that was a rate initiative. We had Chopping Wood, as Sean is chopping wood, and that was an ode to one of the leaders, and that increased our brokerage daily count by double. But people were like running towards that. We even had like Tervis tumblers made, and people loved them and still make fun of them to this day. She's got one. So you can have fun with that.
Guys, thank you so much for sharing and being here. Can we give them one more round of applause? Thanks. Thank you.